Hello again, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to yet another episode of Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Barenfeld. I'm Brandon Barenfeld. Thank you for joining me once again. This is episode 132 of Hockey on the Spot, and sort of a continuation from this morning's episode, number 131. This morning I talked about the top 5 off-season trades that have occurred. For this video, I'm going to do the top 5 free agent signings, as well as the top 5 remaining unrestricted free agents. And also just a quick update from the episode earlier today. Nick Spaulding has officially been signed by the Pittsburgh Penguins, a 2-year, $4.4 million deal. So he is no longer going to arbitration. Now PK Subban is the only player that faces arbitration, and that officially completes the James Neal trade. So the Penguins are pretty much set now. Good for them. Alright, and now without further ado, let's talk about it. The top 5 unrestricted free agent signings. Well, as we all know, there were plenty of free agent signings this offseason, and lots and lots and lots of big ones. Like, for example, Benoit Pouliot going to the Edmonton Oilers. Milan Michalek re-signing with the Ottawa Senators. Guys like Dave Bolland and UC Jokinen going to the Florida Panthers. Sean Thornton as well. A guy like Dan Boyle going to the New York Rangers. That was a very big signing. Ales Hemsky reuniting with Jason Spezza with the Dallas Stars. Jonas Hiller going to the Calgary Flames. Christian Ehrhoff going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And so on and so forth. There were a lot of huge signings going on, but to talk about all of them and to analyze all of them, we would be here all day. So, with that in mind, plus the fact that the 30 teams in 30 days are coming up starting tomorrow, which, by the way, I will also be doing videos on, and I'll talk more about that at the end of the video. Instead of talking about all of those, we're going to talk about my personal top 5 free agent signings for this offseason, in my opinion, plus an honorable mention. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. The top 5 unrestricted free agent signings. And number 5 on this list, in my opinion, and the number 5 free agent signing this offseason is Mike Camilleri signing a 5-year, $25 million contract with the New Jersey Devils. This is a very good signing by the New Jersey Devils for many reasons. 1, the Devils need a goal scorer. Since the loss of Ilya Kovalchuk, they have not had a pure goal scorer in their lineup. And yes, we all know the dominance of 41-year-old Jaromir Jagr last season. However, 41 years old is the key phrase here. For all we know, that could have just been a one-season thing, and this season his age could finally start to show, and he's not the same player. So, in case of that, in the result of something like this, the Devils wanted to get themselves a pure bona fide goal scorer who still has a little bit left in his prime. You know, Mike Camilleri is 32 years of age, so he's got a couple years left in his prime. One might say that the years of the contract might be a little long, and maybe the money may be a little much. Mike Camilleri, of course, former second-round, 49th overall pick by the Los Angeles Kings in 2001. And last year with the Calgary Flames, he played a grand total of 63 games. And in those 63 games, he scored 26 goals, 19 assists for a combined 45 points. Only 26 penalty minutes, and 191 shots on goal. So, we know it. Mike Camilleri is a pure sniper, a pure bona fide goal scorer, and the unique thing about this player is that he can play any forward position. He can play either wing side, and he can also play center. And believe me when I tell you, he's actually very good at center. He wins a lot of face-offs. The only downside about this player is his defensive awareness. He was a -13 last year, and he's been a minus player in the last 4 seasons, and 6 of the last 8 seasons. He's been a minus player for the majority of his career. He has a career minus 59. So this guy is not a defensive player, and the Devils, Lou Lamoriello's team, has always been a team that has played a shutdown, two-way type system with a in-your-face grinding type style. Mike Camilleri is not the most physical player in the world, nor is he the biggest player in the world. He's only 5'9", 190 pounds. But the Devils think they have themselves, at the very least, an offensive player, which is what they wanted. And, he's not going to score as many goals as a guy like you would expect Ilya Kovalchuk would, but he will be a very good offensive player for them. He'll score them goals, and he's also a clutch goal scorer as well, so he'll score some clutch goals in clutch situations, and he's also got some great speed to boot. So I think this is a very good signing by the New Jersey Devils. I think they're heading in the right direction to try to get themselves back in the playoffs. And this is a guy who I think is going to mold in very well with a youngster like Adam Henrique and a veteran like Jaromir Jagr, or even a guy like Travis Zajac, who is in his prime now, who is just entering his prime. Anything could happen with this team. I think the Devils, though, got themselves a good player here. So that's number 5 on the list, Mike Camilleri to the New Jersey Devils. Okay, number 4 on this list is a goaltender. And not just any goaltender, it is Ryan Miller signing a 3-year, I believe $18 million contract with the Vancouver Canucks. I believe it's $18 million. Yes, Ryan Miller signing a 3-year, $18 million deal with the Vancouver Canucks. Just want to double check that really quick. Yes, it is worth $18 million. I am correct. For Ryan Miller, it was kind of an interesting year last year, and he's kind of getting on in his years. He's 34 years of age. The East Lansing, Michigan native is 34 years of age. He was the former 5th round, 138th overall pick by the Buffalo Sabres in the dreadful 1999 NHL entry draft. He was one of the very few good players to come out of that draft. And when I mean good, I mean very good. We all know about his story with the Michigan State Spartans and how he was a superstar throughout the college league. And with the Buffalo Sabres, he tore it up and won the Vezina Trophy during the 09-10 season. Without a doubt, his best year. The last couple of years have kind of been down years for Ryan Miller, but partly because he's been playing on a bad team, especially last year. He began the 2013-14 year as the starting netminder for the Buffalo Sabres. And through 40 games, he managed to achieve just 15 wins and 22 losses, as well as 3 losses in the overtime shootout session. Not good numbers when you consider a Ryan Miller type player. But you had to feel bad for him because it really was not his fault. He was just playing on a very bad team. And for Ryan Miller, with his contract running out, he wanted out of Buffalo so bad, and a trade was worked out so that he could go play for the St. Louis Blues. Both he and Steve Ott were dealt there in exchange for Yaroslav Halak, who was quickly dealt to the Washington Capitals and is now a member of the New York Islanders. Chris Stewart was also involved in that trade, a prospect and a pick. And with the St. Louis Blues, Ryan Miller was very good at one point, and at one point the Blues were the best team in the NHL. The Blues, he got 19 games played for the Blues and managed 10 wins, 8 losses, 1 overtime loss, and 1 shutout. However, most of his success came in the beginning of his time in St. Louis, all until the final stretch of the season where he would lose his last 5 games of the year. He did not have a good finish to the year. So, overall, Ryan Miller would play 59 games and finish with 25 wins, 30 losses, 4 overtime shootout losses, and 1 shutout. So, not the best numbers when you consider Ryan Miller. With the Buffalo Sabres, he had an excuse. He did not have an excuse with the St. Louis Blues. In the playoffs, he wasn't that good either. He won his first 2 games, but then lost the next 4. Through 6 games played, 2 wins, 4 losses, no shutouts. And, a 897 save percentage and a 270 goals against. So not a good. So overall, a season to forget for Ryan Miller, despite that he did end up with a playoff team. Now Ryan Miller goes to the Vancouver Canucks, coming into a situation where the Canucks had lost both of their goaltenders in Roberto Luongo and Corey Schneider, getting rid of both of them at the wrong times, respectively. This left Vancouver without goaltending for the rest of last year, and they needed to bring in a goaltender who at the very least could solidify their goaltending position for at least a little while. Again, Ryan Miller is 34 years of age, but he is a very athletic goaltender, and I believe he can still play the game at this age. Vancouver has a good future in goal with guys like Eddie Lack and Jacob Markstrom, who could both battle for the backup spot. So the Vancouver Canucks have a decent future in goal. Ryan Miller's just really there to be their guy. So Ryan Miller going to the Vancouver Canucks, a team that is rebuilding. It's a really weird situation considering at one point Ryan Miller had refused to go to a Canadian team. Now he's with a Canadian team and with another team like the Buffalo Sabres that's in a rebuilding stage. So for Ryan Miller, to me, it really isn't the best of situations, but we'll see. Vancouver definitely has the potential to get back into the playoffs, but we'll see what happens. But that is my number 4 signing, Ryan Miller, signing 3 years, $18 million with the Vancouver Canucks. Number 3 on this list. Speaking of the St. Louis Blues, it is a signing that they made. The 4-year, $28 million signing of Paul Stastny coming over from the Colorado Avalanche. Paul Stastny was in a situation last year where the Colorado Avalanche were arguably the deepest team in the National Hockey League at center. When you consider Matt Duchene, Nathan McKinnon, who was the Rookie of the Year, and then, of course, Paul Stastny. But Paul Stastny's role in Colorado had been so diminished, and this is a guy who is, a top-line, second-line center. I can understand he had a very rough year during the lockout-shortened year, but had a major comeback year last year. Through 71 games, he had the Canadian-born American finished with 25 goals, 35 assists, and 60 for a combined 60 points, a +9 rating, only 22 penalty minutes, and 150 shots on goal. And in the playoffs, he was arguably the Avalanche's best player. Through 7 games played, 5 goals, 5 assists, 10 points, only 4 penalty minutes, 13 shots on goal. He was a -1 in the playoffs, but you don't need to factor that in when he was one of the better offensive players in the playoffs in round number 1. He was he, along with the Avalanche, were a very exciting team to watch, team/player to watch last year. But, and as much as the Avalanche, I think, did want to sign him, he wanted a bigger role, and he wasn't going to get it with the Avalanche. And, of course, for Paul Stastny, former second-round, 44th overall pick in 2005 by the Avalanche, born in Quebec City but raised, I believe, in St. Louis. But for Paul Stastny, he becomes the 3rd Stastny brother to play for the St. Louis Blues at one point in his career. And what the Blues are getting with Paul Stastny, well, they're getting a centerman with very quick hands, very sick hands, and great speed, and an excellent first pass ability. Now, one might tell you that Stastny may be getting a little bit overpaid for just 4 years. You know, anytime you hear $28 million is overpaid. But, you know, we'll see. The Blues needed another center, whether it's a first-line or second-line center, and now they got it. And it's going to be interesting to see which center between Paul Stastny and David Backes is the top-line center, and which one is the second-line center. The assumption is that David Backes is still going to be the top-line guy, but we'll see. They're both going to go into training camp, and they're both going to compete for that spot. Even though Backes is the captain, he is not. That doesn't necessarily make him the solidified number one center. We'll see, though. I think for Paul Stastny, he's coming to a very good team, and a team that has an excellent chance to win this year. Very excellent chance to win this year, actually. So, that is my third signing right there. A guy who's going to help them on the power play, give him and David Backes that good, one of the better 1-2 punches in the league at center. Also a guy who could kill penalties at times, good at winning faceoffs, and you know the works. Paul Stastny is a very good player, and he'll be a very good player for the St. Louis Blues. I can guarantee it. So there you have it. That's my number 3 signing. Paul Stastny going to the St. Louis Blues is my number 3 signing. My number 2 signing of the season. My number 2 signing for this offseason. And Matt Niskanen going to the Washington Capitals. Matt Niskanen was the most overpaid free agent in the league this offseason, and for actually decent reason. You know, for actually decent reason. He was signed to for Matt Niskanen, he was signed to a 7-year contract worth $40.25 million, which actually, you know, is a lot for a guy like Matt Niskanen, who, for all we know, for the kind of year he had last year, could have just been a 1-year thing. And if that's the case, and the Capitals just overpaid this guy, you know, they already made another big signing for a guy who maybe made more than he deserved in another former Pittsburgh Penguin defenseman, Brooks Orpik, who they signed to a 5-year, $27.5 million contract. But this offseason, they've literally stolen two players from the arch-rival Pittsburgh Penguins. 3 if you count Chris Connor, but he's not someone who's going to play. So that, to me, really doesn't count. So for Matt Niskanen, yes, one of the overpaid free agent signings this year, the most overpaid player this offseason. Well, in my opinion, again, that's a big contract. I like the player going there, but I don't like the contract. But it's the player. But it's not about the contracts for this top 5 free agent list. It's about the player. And the kind of season that Matt Niskanen had last year was the season of one of the top all-around defensemen in the National Hockey League, especially when Chris Letang missed most of the year. Chris Letang, considerably the Penguins' top defenseman overall, was injured for most of the year, and Matt Niskanen really took the mantle when he went down. He played all but one game last year, 81 games, and in 81 games, Matt Niskanen set career highs in every single category. 10 goals, career high. 36 assists, career high. 46 points, a career high. A plus 33, a career high. He was one of the top plus-minus players in the league. And even his 162 shots on goal was a career high. Penalty minutes, he had 51. That was not a career high. He had one more penalty minute in 08-09 with the Dallas Stars. The Virginia, Minnesota native, former 28th overall pick back in 05 by the Dallas Stars. And in the playoffs, he played 13 games and was almost a point-a-game defenseman. Only 2 goals, but he had 7 assists and 9 points. And only 8 penalty minutes and 24 shots on goal. But he was a -2 in the playoffs, but offensively in the playoffs he was very good. Defensively in the playoffs, mediocre, but during the regular season he was fantastic in every way, shape, and form. He's got that booming shot from the point, and this is a guy who is now 27 years of age, which means he's entering his prime years. He'll be 28 in December. He's entering the prime years of his career, and if this is the kind of defenseman he's establishing himself into, then this can be a great signing for the Washington Capitals, who are already seeing the decline of Mike Green. And for a guy like Mike Green, he's been their top offensive defenseman for many years, and now they have a guy with Matt Niskanen coming in who is a more defensive version of Mike Green. And then you consider a guy like John Carlson, who continues to rise through the ranks as a two-way defenseman, as one of their top two-way defensemen. You figure a guy like Mike Green in the coming years, or even at some point this year, could be on his way out. But we'll see. It's going to be an interesting scenario. But for Matt Niskanen, and he's got that right-handed shot, that booming slap shot. He'll be one of their power play quarterbacks. He'll be great alongside a guy like Alex Ovechkin on the point. And on defense, he'll reunite with Brooks Orpik, with the ever-physical shutdown defenseman Brooks Orpik. And the former Pittsburgh Penguins tandem is going to wreak havoc throughout the league. I think the Washington Capitals quite possibly could have themselves a better team this year. They really now just need a second-line center to complete the mold. But otherwise, they have a strong defense group this year, a new coach coming in Barry Trotz, who is a much more defense-minded defensive coach. So the Caps may not be the blazing offensive team we've seen in recent years anymore, but they'll surely be if Barry Trotz's system works, they'll surely be one of the better defensive teams in the league. And additions like Orpik and Niskanen do bulk up their defense, but Niskanen, he's a power play quarterback, and he is a two-way defenseman. He's legit. He's the whole package, so he'll be a great blue liner for the Washington Capitals this season without a doubt. So that is my number 2 signing, despite the fact that he got overpaid. That is my number 2 signing. And my number 1 signing for this offseason, kind of had to guess that this was going to be it. Thomas Vanek going to the Minnesota Wild for 3 years at $19.5 million. You had to figure that I was going to say Thomas Vanek as my number 1 free agent signing. The native of Vienna, Austria, the former 5th overall pick from 2003, now 30 years of age, will be 31 on January 19th, is in the midst of his prime years, so he's still relatively young. But this is a guy who for many years terrorized the league with his offense, many years with the Buffalo Sabres. His career year came in his sophomore campaign of 06-07 when he had 43 goals, 84 points, and led the league with the plus 47 rating for the President's Trophy winning Buffalo Sabres. Going into this year, he was unhappy with the way things were going in Buffalo while only having 1 year left on his contract. He played just 13 games with the Buffalo Sabres this year and was nearly a point-a-game player. 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points. Only 4 penalty minutes and 50 shots on goal, though he was a -5 in Buffalo. But again, he was playing on a very bad team. Very early on in the season, it didn't take long for Thomas Vanek to be out the door, for Thomas Vanek's request to be out the door to go through. Thomas Vanek would be dealt to the New York Islanders for Matt Molson and a first-round pick. Thomas Vanek was excellent in a New York Islanders uniform despite, again, playing on a bad team. Not as bad a team as the Buffalo Sabres, but still a bad team, despite the fact that the Islanders always have one of the deadlier offenses in the league. 47 games played with the Islanders. He had 17 goals, 27 assists, and 27 assists for a combined 44 points, a +4 rating, 34 penalty minutes, and 137 shots on goal. He would combine his forces with guys like John Tavares and Kyle Oposo to form what at the time was one of the best lines in the National Hockey League at the time, despite a weak Islanders team overall. They did have one of the best lines in the league when Vanek was on the team. General manager Garth Snow tried to offer Thomas Vanek a long-term deal, but he declined because of wanting to go play for a contender. So at the trade deadline, when it looked like at points that the Anaheim Ducks were going to get him at the trade deadline in a big deal that would have given the Islanders some key future pieces, he instead would be dealt to the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for nothing except for prospect Sebastian Kohlberg, who could go on to be a good player, and a mere second-round pick. So Garth Snow gypped himself out of what could have been a much better deal for him. Through 18 games with the Montreal Canadiens, Thomas Vanek scored 6 goals, 9 assists, and 9 assists for a combined 15 points, a +8 rating, only 8 penalty minutes, and 61 shots on goal. One may say that his very short-lived career in Montreal could have gone much better, but I think he did fine up until the playoffs came around. For Thomas Vanek in the playoffs, offense was not the problem. He tied a career high in the playoffs for points. Through 17 games, 5 goals and 5 assists for a combined 10 points. However, defensively, he was totally off. A -4 rating in the playoffs. Only 4 penalty minutes, though, which is a good sign. But he only had 28 shots on goal. He was despite the decent offense in the playoffs, he was very unmotivated when the playoffs came around, and he even saw himself playing on the fourth line at times. So when we look back on Thomas Vanek's season overall, combined with the 3 teams, the Buffalo Sabres, New York Islanders, and Montreal Canadiens, he played a grand total of 78 games, scored a grand total of 27 goals, and had a grand total of 41 assists, which brings us to a grand total of 68 points. He did finish the year with a +7 rating overall. 46 penalty minutes overall, and shots on goal, let's see, 47, 57, 187, 197, 207, 217, 227, 248 shots on goal. So his offensive numbers during the regular season may not be his career best, but it sure was a good season for him offensively. Despite just failing to hit the 30-goal mark, but it was yet another 20-goal season for Thomas Vanek. He's finished with 20 or more goals in every single season that he's played in the National Hockey League. It's just in the playoffs for the Montreal Canadiens, he was not that good. And for a high-pressure market like Montreal, that does not float. And so, Thomas Vanek had been rumored to go to the Minnesota Wild all season long because of his connections there and his long friendship with a guy like Jason Pominville. So he reunites with Jason Pominville, and it's very possible that we could see those two playing on the same line at the start of the season. And you think of the Minnesota offense now. Look at Zach Parise, Thomas Vanek, that 1-2 punch on left wing. Jason Pominville, and a guy like Nino Niederreiter. If he can improve on his breakthrough year last year. And then at center, Mikko Koivu and Michael Granlund, who's only continuing to grow. So the Minnesota Wild have a lot to look forward to. You also got another good youngster in Charlie Coyle as well. So a lot to look forward to in Minnesota for the upcoming year. They have a very bright future ahead of them. They just need a solidified, bona fide starting goaltender. If they can get that, they'll be just fine. So the addition of Thomas Vanek makes the Minnesota Wild a deadlier team than before, and that is why that is my number one signing. Maybe not so much defensively, but offensively and on the power play, this guy's a bona fide sniper, bona fide goal scorer, and he's going to do some great things for this team. I can feel it. And that is my number one free agent signing for the offseason. The honorable mentions for this offseason, I did have a couple in mind. A couple of guys like Brian Giunta and going to the Buffalo Sabres, and Matt Molson returning to the Buffalo Sabres after being dealt to the Minnesota Wild at the trade deadline. And originally Molson probably was going to be my honorable mention until I saw Jarome Iginla. I had completely forgotten about Jarome Iginla and his comeback year from last year. Jarome Iginla went on to sign with the Colorado Avalanche to a 3-year, I want to say $19 million deal. At 37 years of age, at 36 going into 37 years of age, Jarome Iginla had a huge comeback year after a rough lockout-shortened year combined with the Calgary Flames and Pittsburgh Penguins. He had a huge comeback year with the Boston Bruins, playing alongside David Krejci and Milan Lucic, replacing Nathan Horton. Through 78 games this year, the veteran future Hall of Famer had 30 goals, 31 assists, and 61 points, and was also one of the top plus-minus players in the league at plus 34, only 47 penalty minutes, and 209 shots on goal. And in the playoffs, he was just as good. 12 playoff games for the President's Trophy winning Boston Bruins, 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 points, an even plus-minus rating, only 12 penalty minutes, and 26 shots on goal. So you think about Jarome Iginla and how well he played for the Boston Bruins. Another, like Jaromir Jagr, another veteran who proved that he still has a bit left in the tank. And for the Colorado Avalanche, this is a team that is starting to get some more veterans in the lineup. They already got Danny Briere to try to help them grow and mature. Jarome Iginla is another guy who's going to help them grow and mature. Put him next to a guy like Matt Duchene or a guy like Nathan McKinnon, who will be moved to center for the upcoming year. He's really going to help out whichever one he plays alongside with. Jarome Iginla, I think, will be a great addition to this team. He is a slow starter, though that is the one concern for the Avalanche. Jarome Iginla is a slow starter. He will not get many points for the first couple months of the year. But then when he picks it up, this is a guy whose offense is going to just blaze right through the league. He'll blaze right through the league, and he'll be one of the best players. That's what always happens with Jarome Iginla. It always happened in Calgary, and it happened last year in Boston. So Jarome Iginla, I think, overall will be a good addition for the Colorado Avalanche. And that is my honorable mention. And those are my top free agent signings as we now take a look at my top 5 remaining unrestricted free agents. All guys who some could sign very soon, but then you got others who are going to have to wait a long time before getting their first contract. I'm not going to go into too much detail with these players. Not going to really discuss how many points, what their accomplishments were last year, but go too much into it. But number 5 on my list, without a doubt, is kind of a surprise, actually. My number 5 choice is actually kind of a surprise. I actually say for my number 5 choice, I am going with Yoni Pitkinen coming over from the Yoni Pitkinen from the Carolina Hurricanes. Why he's number 5 on this list? Despite the fact that he has been injury prone for a long, long time now, and he missed all of last year, if he can get back and be healthy, he could be a very valuable asset for whatever team he goes to, even if it's Carolina, if he decides to re-sign there. And also, this is assuming that if Yoni Pitkinen can come back at all. He's 30 years of age. He is 30 years of age, so we'll have to see. I hope Yoni Pitkinen can come back, and I hope he does find a good team to go to, and I hope he can stay healthy, because when he's healthy, he's one of the most effective two-way defensemen in the game. Great skating ability, great shot, and a great first passing ability, a power play quarterback. This guy, he's a very reliable defenseman when he's healthy. So I hope Pitkinen can come back and get his career back in shape. I do like Yoni Pitkinen. I have respect for him. So hopefully he can get his career back in shape real soon. Number 4 on this list, believe it or not, is one of 2 goaltenders who I have on this list. Number 4 on this list, Ilya Bryzgalov, who split last season between the Edmonton Oilers and the Minnesota Wild. When he was a late season signing by the Edmonton Oilers, wasn't very good in Edmonton, was dealt to the Minnesota Wild at the trade deadline, and once he got to Minnesota, he took off. Ilya Bryzgalov was excellent with the Minnesota Wild, and he got them at least a point in every game. He did not lose a single game in regulation in Minnesota until the playoffs. And even in the playoffs, he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant in the playoffs. He got them to the second round when they beat the Colorado Avalanche in 7 games. They lost to the Chicago Blackhawks in 6 games. But it was just a great feat, an excellent feat for the Minnesota Wild and for Ilya Bryzgalov, which shows that even at 34 years of age, he does have quite a bit left in the tank, and for maybe a 1-year type thing and for a low budget, he could be a good goaltender for any team that's in need of one. Or if he returns to the Minnesota Wild, we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see what does happen to Ilya Bryzgalov. But I think he would be a good asset for any team that needs a goaltender. I really do. Okay, number 3 on this list for me, my third best remaining free agent is the top scorer among the remaining unrestricted free agents, Daniel Alfredsson. Daniel Alfredsson, we know what the fate of Daniel Alfredsson is. He's 41 years of age, and for him at this point in his career, he's already said that it's either Detroit Red Wings or retirement. Well, even with that being said, he still had 18 goals and 49 points last year, and he's still a very effective player, and that is why he's on this list. Even though he's not going anywhere else, and we know he's staying with the Detroit Red Wings, he still had to be put on this list just for the simple fact that it is Daniel Alfredsson, and he, even at 41 years of age, has proven that he is still a very effective player in this league. It's going to be interesting to see if Alfie does sign one more year with Detroit, or if he does call quits. And I think it's all going to depend on the development of Anthony Mantha, who is without a doubt Detroit's top prospect at this point. He's going to be a superstar. If he's not ready to play out, if they feel he needs another year, then Alfie will be back. If Mantha's ready to play, then Alfie's gone. That's what's going to happen. That is why Daniel Alfredsson's at number 3. At number 2 on this list, my number 2 remaining unrestricted free agent is 42-year-old goaltender Martin Brodeur. Never thought I'd see the day that I'd ever say that name on an unrestricted free agents list, because usually by now he is back in a New Jersey Devils uniform. But it has been announced by both him and general manager Lou Lamoriello, it's been agreed upon that Marty Brodeur will not be back in New Jersey and the Devils have to look toward the future. And Marty Brodeur wants to go to a place where he could possibly still be a starter. He really does think, despite the fact that he's had some of the poorest statistics among any NHL goaltender over the last few years, he still thinks that he's a legitimate starter in this league, and he still thinks that he has a lot left in the tank. Well, I got a newsflash for you, Marty. You're not Marty Brodeur anymore, or at least the goaltender Marty Brodeur. You know, you're pretty washed up now, but, I mean, no offense, but, you know, you'll learn that the hard way. And I think regardless, whether he learns this lesson or not, this probably will be his last season. One's got to think that the only reason he's doing this is so that he can possibly get his 700th NHL win. You know, and whether he can get to that feat or not is going to depend on how much he plays. You know, and even where he goes. You know, because to me, he's really not a starter anymore. But we'll see what happens with Marty Brodeur. You know, there are teams out there that need goaltending, and he's going to be a valuable asset to whatever team needs even a backup goaltender, a veteran goaltender with experience and wisdom. And what better goaltender to do it than the greatest goaltender of all time, the winningest goaltender of all time, the holder of so many goaltending records. You know, I really did think that he was going to end his career with being a New Jersey Devil for life. If anyone was going to be a New Jersey Devil, stay with one team for the rest of their career, it was going to be Marty Brodeur. That is now not the case. We said that about the same thing about Daniel Alfredsson a couple of years ago, but he went on to the Detroit Red Wings. So we'll see where Marty Brodeur goes this time. I think a team, you know, in my personal opinion, I think a team like the Boston Bruins would actually be a pretty good choice for a guy like Marty Brodeur. With Chad Johnson gone, you know, they really don't have a backup goaltender. They do have that kid, Nicholas Svedberg, who's supposed to be pretty good. But, you know, behind Tuukka Rask, you know, we don't know much about him. Brodeur could be a guy who could give Svedberg one more year to develop. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with a guy with Marty Brodeur. You know, the Chicago Blackhawks are another team who could get him as well. And my number one remaining unrestricted free agent is a guy who wasn't even a UFA in the beginning. He was a restricted free agent in the beginning, but was not given a qualifying offer, and that is Michael Del Zotto, who split last season between the New York Rangers and the Nashville Predators. And why Michael Del Zotto is on this list? Well, because he's still very young. He's 24 years of age. He's the youngest player among the big names still available. Among well-known names still available, Michael Del Zotto is indeed the youngest player on this list, although that won't be the case when Kevin Hayes hits the list. But still, to me, it's actually kind of surprising he hasn't found a home yet. I mean, yeah, Michael Del Zotto had an awful year last year, and actually has not been that great the past couple of years. He hasn't been the same since 2011, 2012. The Rangers dealt him to the Nashville Predators last year in a straight-up deal for shutdown defenseman Kevin Kline. Well, Michael Del Zotto, I think, would be a good asset to try to get his career back in shape, would be a good asset for any team that needs defense. You know, and needs an offensive defenseman who can really shoot the puck, can be a devastating power play quarterback if he's playing at his best, has great skating ability, makes an excellent first pass. You know, it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Michael Del Zotto and where he goes. Don't know which teams are interested. I mean, I've heard the Detroit Red Wings are a possibility, but we'll see what happens. I don't know any other teams that are rumored to get him. And that is my number one available restricted free agent. My honorable mention for this, I do have a couple actually, but I actually do have a couple. It's kind of a tie for my honorable mention between Ray Whitney and Dustin Penner. Ray Whitney, because he's another guy, 42 years of age, who still, to me, has another year left in the tank, like Marty Brodeur has another year left in the tank. and could be an interesting player to finish his career with a team like the San Jose Sharks. Go back to the place where he began his career. I would not be surprised at all if Whitney did go back to the San Jose Sharks to finish his career. We'll see, though. It's going to be interesting where he goes. And then Dustin Penner, when he was split the year between the Anaheim Ducks and Washington Capitals last year, and with the Ducks, he played alongside Ryan Getzlaf and Corey Perry and had a completely revitalized year. Once he got traded to the Washington Capitals, he was not the same. So it just shows you that Dustin Penner's really a guy who needs to play alongside good players to thrive in this league. He's still relatively young, too. He's 31 years of age, so he's still in the prime of his career. He's a big body. He can skate pretty well for his size. He's got a pretty good shot. And could pose as a good, if you put him with good players, he could be a solid scorer for you, solid 30-40 point scorer for you. Or if you want to put him as a depth player, he'd be good with that too. There are teams out there that need physicality, and maybe a team like the New York Rangers could go after a guy like Dustin Penner if they have the money to do so. They need to sign John Moore. That is now their number one priority. But after that, I think Dustin Penner would be an interesting player for them to look into. I don't think they will, because I think they want to rely on a young player to fill Benoit Pouliot's spot, but we'll see. We will see what happens. And those are my top 5 remaining unrestricted free agents. And that is going to do it for episode 132 of Hockey on the Spot. Other than the Nick Spaulding re-signing, there were a couple of other re-signings over the last couple days. Robin Lehner re-signed with the Ottawa Senators. Dwight King re-signed with the Los Angeles Kings. Matt Halischuk re-signed with the Winnipeg Jets. Jake Gardner re-signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs. That one actually kind of came a bit as a surprise. Andy Green re-signed with the New Jersey Devils. And then, of course, in the last couple of days, we've had only really one player going elsewhere, and that was Daniel Winnick, who played for the Anaheim Ducks the last couple of years. He is now a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. A good signing for them. He'll be a very good depth player for them. Very good puck handler for a team that needs puck control. Now, as you guys are aware, the 30 teams in 30 days are coming up. They will begin tomorrow, Friday, August 1st, 2014. So for the next couple of days, for the next month or so, I'm going to try to do a video every single day so I can cover these 30 teams in 30 days. And for the 30 teams in 30 days, I'm going to try my hardest to keep each and every video of the 30 teams in 30 days around 20 minutes. Maybe exactly 20 minutes, maybe a little under, or maybe a little over. I'm going to try to keep those videos as short as possible. This is not my first time doing the 30 teams in 30 days. As you all are aware, I did them last year as well. Those are some of my original videos. You can go back and check those out if you want. My third episode was the Anaheim Ducks review. They were the first team last year. This year they are actually going to be the last team. The first team will be the New York Islanders. The order that has been placed this year is by division and by division finishes, and the order of the divisions that they're doing, I believe, if I'm correct, is also going by the division standings. Which division leader was the best? Actually, no, that's not the case. I take that back, I think. Actually, I'm just doing a real quick check of that. Yeah, no, that's not really the case at all. That's not really the case at all. But yeah, it's just going by division. They're switching it up between East-West, East-West, and it's going by standings within the division. The Metropolitan Division, which was the last division last year, is now the first division this year. And because the New York Islanders finished last place in the Metropolitan Division, they will be the first team that I will do. they will be the first team that I'm going to do. And the Pacific Division, which was done first last year, will be done last this year. And because the Anaheim Ducks were the best team in that division, they will be the last team that I will do overall this year for the 30 teams in 30 days. So looking forward to it. That is also another reason why I didn't really talk about every free agent signing, because through these 30 teams in 30 days, we're going to analyze every single team. For those of you who don't remember from last year, analyze every single team, every single trade, major trade the teams made, and every single free agent signing that was made by each team. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I'm really excited. But again, for the entire month of August, I'm going to try to do a video every single day. And if I miss a day, I will make it up. I will do my best to make it up and do multiple videos in one day to make it up. I'm going to get through every single team in this month. One way or another, I'm going to. So with that being said, that'll officially do it for episode 152 of Hockey on the Spot. This has been Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Barenfeld. I'm Brandon Barenfeld, and I will see you guys again tomorrow when the 30 teams in 30 days begins with the New York Islanders. Thank you, and have a great day.